What is the worst book that you read for school? I hated Jane Eyre. Absolutely hated it. Jane was boring. Rochester was an a-hole. The prose was coma-inducingly boring. I decided to reread it as an adult because I went through a classics kick. And to my shock and utter dismay, I loved it. I found Jane so much more relatable. I found Rochester somewhat less creepy. I could understand their motivations and sympathize with their challenges. And that's the day I realized that force-feeding high schoolers books that they cannot relate to is the best way to poison the experience of reading and ensure that they'll never read another book after they graduate. Most of the books I hated weren't because of the book, but because of how the teacher and my classmates approached the book. For example, Lord of the Flies. We talked a lot about Freud and leadership. My teacher liked attributing different characters to the id and the ego and claimed the author purposely did that. But there's a statement from the author that explicitly said the opposite, and for leadership she asked if it's possible to be a good leader, but a bad person. I said yes, and apparently that was wrong. Having to read Don Quixote in the original Spanish and then again in the modern to see if we understood the original. I swear that teacher was a sadist. The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. I understand the message the author was trying to put across, but it's the most unrealistic portrayal of death camps. No German kid would have ever gotten near a prisoner. No German kids would be unaware who Hitler was. It totally ignored the historic record. I had to read Twilight in my 10th grade honors English class because my teacher had Stephanie Meyer in his class when she was in school, and he was so excited that she had become such a success. We took chapter quizzes about a brooding, sparkly vampire when we should have been reading 1984 instead. Reading Great Expectations was like pulling teeth. Catcher in the Rye was honest to F insufferable to read through. I get Holden is supposed to be a ref up, but literally every action he does is the stupidest possible thing. It's like reading 50 pages of a guy getting repeatedly kicked in the nuts. Things fall apart. I understood the message. I appreciated the descriptions. I empathized with the characters as well as intended. But good lord was it hard to get through. Ethan Frome, who tries to commit suicide by sledding into a tree. I had a teacher who managed to make Huckleberry Finn boring. Also the Hatchet. That teacher was gifted with being terrible. I really hated The Awakening in high school. I kinda want to read it again to see if it was actually bad or just my attitude at the time, but man, it was basically impossible to lead any kind of productive discussion on that book because our whole class hated it. The Great Gatsby. It was super boring. Frustrating read, yet everyone and their FN mother loves the crap out of it because of the roaring 20s, like the idea is supposed to be the American dream and Jay not being able to live that dream, but it's all just Daisy being a dumb gold-digging hoe because of the American dream. Hard times, the sentences were so long I forgot what the beginning was about by the time I got the end. I hated reading Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. It was a long summer reading book that was a chore to get through. Tie between Wuthering Heights and Letters to Alice. Maybe I'd appreciate Wuthering Heights more if I read it again today, but Faye Weldon's condescending S-tone in Letters to Alice was unbearable. Scarlet Letter by far. Extremely slow pacing, loads of unnecessary imagery, and for a group of high schoolers it just pushed us all to use Spark Notes for it and every other book we had. The Pearl. I hated that book so much. Every page was just a drag to read. The Alchemist is 200 pages from the kid who showed up for the lead class on symbolism and nothing else. Island of the Blue Dolphins, not the worst in quality, but it was just too dang sad. I was in 6th grade, and it starts with her getting left on an island by her family. Her brother dies, the wolf she raised died. She finally was rescued, just to be told her whole tribe died on the boat ride she missed. I love me some sad literature, but 11-year-old me was not pleased. Anthem by Ayn Rand. The teachers were going on and on about how it was a wonderful book and so fun to analyze, but it just sucked. The main character was just like, screw everyone, I'm special and better than everyone. And his love interest was just like, I barely know you, but let's run off together, and F because you're special. And it felt like a horrible fanfiction of 1984. And that's saying something, because Anthem came out 10 years before 1984. While having the greatest chapters in history, My Mother is a Fish, As I Lay Dying, was a nightmare for a 9th grader to try and interpret. Probably The Crucible, although to remember why it was so bad I would need to reread it as an adult. I just have painful memories of it from school. The only other books I can remember being made to study in school were Lord of the Flies and Treasure Island, and recall both being enjoyable. The Turn of the Screw. Let me sum it up for you. Words kids words lady words ghost words lady words kids words kids words crazy lady words ghost words ghost. For me, anything Shakespeare. As much as I love reading, I had zero interest in his work, so being forced to read them and take tests was torture. I also failed all of the tests. Dracula. It's not a completely terrible book, it was just not what I was expecting, and left me a bit disappointed. I was really excited to read it, but did not expect it to be in the format of journal entries. It just wasn't a style I particularly enjoyed. I can totally understand why it became such a classic though. It was almost like the Blair Witch Project of its time, like found footage in a way. The Grapes of Wrath. I get it, times were tough. I also don't need a chapter on a turtle struggling to survive, thanks. I think it's actually the only book assignment I never finished reading. Still did fine on the test because of the in-class discussions. Tess of the D'Urbervilles. And I love classic literature. I actually exclusively read what is considered classic literature. I do love the 1979 film version directed by Roman Polanski and starring Nastassja Kinski. Such a testament to post-punk era filmmaking, almost perfect in every way, and if you were not around for the post-punk era you will probably not understand. I just love that film. The novel on the other hand, not so much. The Pearl by Steinbeck. The lesson, at least as we were taught, was that this guy was overtaken by greed, and it causes him to basically lose everything. I read it as this poor guy, who works an incredibly dangerous job, pearl diver, finds a pretty epic pearl, and isn't keen to get effed over by the intermediaries, who are trying to get it at a discount. This guy knows that this was a once in a lifetime find and wants to get enough money to be able to effectively take care of his family and stop engaging in an occupation that is sure to shorten his life. Now, as an adult, I think I can understand the point a bit better. Still, it reads an awful lot like listen, take what you can get. Don't worry about being taken advantage of, especially when you have two people with such a power disparity as the pearl diver and the people buying said pearls. Okay, this is totally my moment. The book is called The Sun Will Rise Again by George Mujahidi. Haven't heard of it? Good. Thank the gods. I hated this book so effing much it was terrible. Let me show you why. It's about a family in 1980s Zimbabwe. The mother Fatima is in a hospital reminiscing about the good old days. The good old days. Oh, the times when her husband, Takundwa, would come home drunk every night and shout at her, and occasionally beat her. This Takundwa raped her not once, not twice but thrice. When she gets pregnant, his sicko family demands she marry him. Oh, we're not done guys. He has to pay a bride price and of course the dump stinges on that. Oh yes, this is just chapter 2. They have two lovely daughters, Sophia, 14, and Tabitha, 7. Sophia dreams of being something big. I don't remember what she mentions it like once, but let's not forget Sophia's dad is friends with a big government official cuntbag called Nati who used to play snitch before independence. Oh, Nati is bad, right? Not enough. The effer kills babies in witchcraft rituals to strengthen his power. You won't believe what happened. That's right buddies, Takundwa gave up his youngest daughter Tabitha for this ritual. Here chapter 8 everyone. Takundwa feels a bit guilty now. So he drinks and realizes that he's married. So naturally, he beats his wife nearly to death with his bare hands and drinks to near death. Meanwhile Sophia is being molested by her teachers. Boo-hoo. This is just the beginning. Nayati is back. Taking one kid from this effer seems to have been insufficient. He takes a liking to Sophia. Now I must remind you this nonce is 46 or something, and she's 15 now. How lovely age numbers pedophilic no, or like whatevs right. Yes. Takundwa forces his only surviving daughter to marry the effer he just gave his youngest daughter. Oh god, why would he do that? I'll tell you. Those sweet Zimbabwean dollars. He gets $10,000, which is like £11,000 at the time, if I'm not mistaken. One day Takundwa remembers his marriage and decides on some homemade marriage counseling and begins his routine wife beating. This time, however, his wife is of another mind and she defends herself and the twat dies. How sad. Well, yes, but actually no. Sophia had a crush on Jeremiah, a schoolmate. Sorry, no, Jeremiah had a crush on Sophia, but Sophia has at this point been abused so much she doesn't even care, so long as someone shows compassion towards her. So she has an affair with him. Onayati is now being investigated for corruption. Who would have thought? Well, everyone. He's angry. His power is being diminished. Another baby killing perhaps. He ponders and decides, F it, I'm married, need some counseling. He clearly sees Sophia cheating on him with Jeremiah and is livid. So he makes piecemeal of Jeremiah and the Saprons. So about that marriage counseling. Proceeds to abuse Sophia physically. At her weakest, he unbuckles his belt and prepares for this book's forte before she picks up a knife and threatens him. He backs up onto a window, slips, falls and dies. She meets with Jeremiah. Fatima is scared. Sophia is acquitted. She's free. Everyone lives happily ever after. Yes. No. This whole book is effing depressing. Everyone is mentally and physically scarred. You need therapy and help. Not effing roses. The epitome of this book is in the final sentence, paraphrasing. As they gazed at the bustle of town life, Jeremiah held her hand and said, "Don't worry, Sophia, the sun will rise again." I had to read this book in like grade 10/form 3. Piss off.